I don't know how to explain this. So there's just a paradox that exists for old gen debaters. There's a paradox that exists, and it's been dying out as of recent. People have stopped believing in the paradox as much, but still, like I've seen some weird proposals of the argument or the paradox. Now you see, notably, they are most of the time they're just low tier people. They are people like Zizo, so usually I don't pay them much attention. But then you see the odd person who's like, oh my goodness, Airflame's really the go. Now when you ask him, okay, who's Airflame be? Well, he says, oh well, he beat Demi, and I'm like, okay, well, who's Demi be? And you say, oh, he beat Bubbles, and they're like, okay, well, why is Bubbles good? Because obviously you need to switch up the question eventually. Well, why is Bubbles good? Well, then you don't get an answer, and then you ask, okay, well, why is Demi good? And then you don't get the answer. So you notice that the paradox of the OGen debaters is just that their feet kind of go into a big circle at one point where it's like you know because they don't, not only do they not really scale to anyone, so, or they don't really like have any sort of debates with people of the current generation, so it's kind of hard to compare them. But it's also the fact that just upon observing the way they debate, upon observing the debate tactics that they use, so look at Aeroflame. Typically, if we say if Aeroflame was doing, or if like Mono did what Aeroflame did, right, exactly, so he copied his debate style down to a T, however he just sounded like he does regularly, everyone would call him an idiot. But the reason why people seem to think that Airflame was so good is specifically because of the fact that he was really aggressive, specifically because of the fact that he had a voice that was really assertive. And it wasn't so clearly if Mono can do the exact same thing Jested, or the exact same thing Arrow does, but without the voice, without the tone, right, then you'll notice that, okay, so it has to be a rhetoric thing, right? So people generally, they were listening to Airflame debate, listening to him yell at people, and they're like, oh my goodness, this guy's such a high tier, right? So if this is how the thought process of the old generation was, right, and if this was how they were thinking, and this is how they determined people who are really good, then again, I don't understand how can you really like see these people are competent. So I've seen people say that, oh yeah, no, none of the new gen debaters are top 10. My top 10 is Demi. And then you ask them, okay, well, who's Demi? B. And then, oh, can you send me any recordings of Demi? And then you watch it, and you watch even a Trini recording, and you notice that Trini is saying this sort of stuff that you attribute to trolls in the current community. Trini is basically giving troll level arguments. You see Trini saying stuff like, and I quote, I can know something I don't know. You also see someone like Parrot saying knowledge is the act of knowing things. It's like you notice these guys were supposed to be well informed about philosophy, well informed about these sorts of topics that nobody else turned out at their current age was. But then you notice that, okay, well, the sort of knowledge they have, not only it's below intro level knowledge, like supposedly, and I've heard very really good vouchers for this, that he, like someone like Trini, lost to Mr. Batman. Now again, losing to Mr. Batman is such a bad thing because current community debaters sort of run through Mr. Batman on a daily basis, so the fact that he's losing to somebody like Mr. Batman is really embarrassing. And the other fact that, like, literally there's no sort of like the skill ceiling for fiction debating is just so low. So you look at the people who are considered to be the best at fiction debating, and you notice it bottoms out somewhere like, oh well, Six and Seth, and then you listen to Six and Seth actually talk, right? You listen to them debate. It's like, okay, well, they aren't doing anything particularly special. Like, sure, maybe they might know more than they might know more than the other person they're debating, right? I know Seth was like talking about axioms with Six, and it's like, okay, well, but these guys are completely confused about anything to do with axioms, but maybe Seth is less confused. Oh, and I posted a video of Seth debating veganism, and people were like, okay, well, he won. So what was the bad performance? So it's like maybe I uploaded the wrong debate because there's no way people watched that and thought that Seth did good there. But specifically, he was like running against people who were like against veganism. He tried to run the NTT when somebody gave him the tray of, oh well, they are humans, so I shouldn't value them. Seth was like, he kind of folded specifically because of the fact that like there wasn't any sort of reductives that he could give to the what's it called. There wasn't any sort of reductives he could give towards the view that, oh well, being a human is the defining trait that distinguishes an animal from a human in terms of moral value. Like that sort of weak argument that a random was given, he couldn't really refute it. But the more notable one is whenever Jordy debated them on veganism, and then Seth was just misusing the, like, oh my goodness, Seth was saying, oh yeah, so my position is cultural No, my position was cultural relativism. No, cultural prescriptivism. And I was like, okay, well, this guy's just completely confused, right? Now, he did say that, okay, well, this was his first veganism debate. But really, if you really deep that, people who just start debating fiction or start debating like on veganism in the current community, right? You notice that they don't make the sort of low level blunders that Seth was making. So maybe it's a talent issue. Maybe Seth got there because of like years and years of debating and debating and debating over and over and over again, which made him get that good. Right? So he doesn't pick up on things really quickly, and like you can say that's probably the excuse, but then it's like, okay, so maybe he's just an experienced Sandy then. So maybe the only reason why he's quote unquote good is because he's debated for so long. He practically knows everything about it. So it's like, imagine Zach Lee from Lookism, like he's lost so many times that like suddenly he's lost so many times, he basically knows every single strategy that his opponent uses because he's lost to the arguments as many times as he did. And it's like, okay, well, that probably isn't a good debate. I mean, you can say it might be, but that probably isn't a good debater. That's just somebody who's like, he's basically a knowledge Andy, except you gain your knowledge by like continuously losing over and over and over again. It's like, that isn't the type of values that I have whenever I'm saying somebody is a better debater than the other, right? Again, the sort of values I have, I explained it in my tier list making video, which people seem to watch, but then after they seem to watch it, they also, began to completely ignore everything I said in the video and just say, oh, well, he's better because he has law. It's like, it's the sort of thing where when I ask somebody, okay, why is Arcono good, and they start getting offended on Arcono's behalf, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. I was a little bit mean to Arcono, but hey, right, that's Arcono's business, right? So when I ask you, okay, why is Arcono good, and then you tell me, oh, well, Arcono's good because I've discussed with them. And then I'm like, okay, well, why should I care about your discussion when I'm making my own tier list, especially when you don't have a recording? And it's like, oh, everyone knows Arcono is good. It's like, okay, well, I'm not everyone for one. And then two, most people in the community are really stupid. The other thing is I want to talk about is like, why do people seem to value consensus as much as they do, right? So this is something I do whenever at least I'm looking at polls, right? So if I make a community poll or I see a community poll, right, like what's it called, and I see it on somebody's channel, and what's it called, I see on somebody's channel, and then I just like immediately I vote for whoever I think won originally. But then whenever I see whoever has more votes, I'll just change my vote because who cares, right? I want to support the person who has more votes. So it's like, if you start off strong, then you're always going to end strong in terms of community votes. I don't think the people who actually vote on these polls are actually watching it as much as they do. So whenever I see somebody who says they rely on consensus, Zizo, right, and then immediately when there's a consensus that's going against them, so like for example, most people's tier list, right, have me way above Zizo, and Zizo's like, oh well, but the people who are actually relevant with actual feats, like these old gen guys that I know, they think I'm better than you, so but then when you ask him, okay, well, why are any of these guys good? What are these quote unquote feats that you reference? And then immediately his mind goes blank, right? Because he hasn't thought that far. You get what I mean? So again, like in retrospective, Jesus Christ, I don't know how to say that word, but looking back on, the old debates that happened, you don't need to say, oh, well, he's good compared to his era, and that's why he's the best debater, because again, that's like trying to compare Genghis Khan, that's trying to say Genghis Khan would win in a war against the average general in the US government, right? And it's like, okay, well, even if he may be a better general compared to the people he's going against, right, that doesn't mean anything, specifically because of the fact that, again, he's just competing against bums. So of course he has an easier time and an easier method of being better than them, especially when like the people who he's competing with, really, they don't even know what 1+1 is, right? They just say, they hear the word axiom and then their brain goes crazy because they haven't really read enough to even know what an axiom is, for one, nor have they even read enough to actually be able to know that you don't have to grant axioms exist, right? Again, if you said that you don't grant axioms exist, you'd be looked at as if you were crazy back then. Take it from me, I was there for a little bit, right? It's like you'd be looked at as if you're crazy, and the reason why is specifically because of the fact that people, they haven't read enough to actually know whether or not you should grant axioms existing or not. They just hear the word, they've heard other people use it, right? And basically what they do is they try and emulate what other people do whenever they debate. But the issue is, whenever the people you're emulating basically have no idea how to debate, the debate community was really, really fresh then, right? Again, that isn't the type of thing you should be emulating, because of the on the fairway, you said, because of the fact that, like, literally, since they don't have any idea what they're doing, it's like trying to copy a toddler, right? And it's like, yeah, the toddler's probably good compared to other babies at his time, but you're a grown man now, right? You shouldn't be comparing yourself to toddler. You shouldn't be using a toddler as the basis or the sort of thing that you're using to make yourself better, right? So again, look, whenever I see people rank Trini, Seth, all of them boys high, I'm not even going to say that they're ass, because really, you have to say, like, put respect where respect is due. They're good compared to people who are debating, right? In a sense, and I've always said this, Seth and Trini were sort of beyond their time. But when beyond your time just means the average low tier in current day, where I actually believe Smoothie, like, if he, turned into a regular human being, would have a decent chance at beating you, then there's something going wrong. Like, you're beyond your time, but if beyond your time just means tier 4 now, then what does that really get you, if you get what I mean? But that's it. There's not really much to talk about. I need this video to go for 15 minutes, but who cares anyway? This is me, Shenra, and I'm out. Goodbye.